One of our favorite things was to wave at the trains that rat whisker like tribal marks sold dried fish, dried catfish impaled on short black sticks. There was a swing in our yard. She was the only girl in our neighborhood who had a swing, but she was the only girl who did not have a father. He had, he had died when she was 3 years old. The only other child we knew without a father was a boy named Babarinsa. His name meant my father saw me and ran. His father had died just weeks before he was born. Morayo, can you imagine if that were my name? Tommy once times. Tommy could be found waiting outside our house gate, threatening to our ever smiling my guide, who listened to our lively conversation but rarely said a word. On clear afternoons, Tommy could be found waiting outside our house gate. On clear afternoon, from Tommy's house, could run to the nearby ridge to watch the trains go by. The first time Enya joined us, she tugged frantically at my arm, her tiny glasses bouncing on her red glowing face. Morayo, Morayo. He refused the offer. The aroma from the fish pie at the gun would make the offer a second time, so that I could see had failed to teach us good manners. When Tommy visited our house, Mommy expected the same behavior from her. I gave Mrs. Adigun a big smile when she repeated her offer. The warm, flaky crust melted in my mouth. Though I love spending time with Tommy, I had another reason to want to visit her, a boy named Dotun. He was a fine eyes framed by dark eyelashes that fluttered anytime he laughed. He also had that Dotun liked us too. He always winking at us. Tommy and I kept a tally of who earned the most winks. Speak out. I stood up. I have to go. I promised that I would not stay long because of any ayo. She was at home. Tommy nodded. Let me see you off. Mommy worried about exposing Enya's delicate Enyayo in her London dress. Someone shouted one day as Enyayo and I walked past a group of children playing 10-10. Unfortunate European. Did you buy your dress when you went to London to see the Queen? One of the girls asked with a mocking laugh. This one, London dress, throw this dress back in your face if you gave it to them. Unfortunate European. Blind bat. The children threw this insult at my affiant sister, but Enyayo would not let them see her cry. She would walk past them on the street with her head. How hard I tried, I could never make out the words he whispered. Because our daddy was Enitioti Akpatajide, a person who arose from a rock, that hard place, he was often at work traveling. But on those quiet evenings he was home, Enyayo and I would listen to him tell stories in the sitting room. Most evenings, we sat under the bright blue light of our Aladdin kerosene lamps. Electricity supply across the country was unreliable. The National Electricity Power Authority, NEPA, was famous for blackouts. Anytime the light flickered out, Enyayo and I would raise our fist in the air and shout with frustration, NEPA. Outside, we heard our neighbors shouting too. Mommy sat next to Daddy while he told us story, and she would softly as she knitted. Auntie Adoni often joined us after clearing up the kitchen. She would sit on one of the chairs across from Daddy, her stout legs nearly tucked away under a long wrapper, while her soft brown eyes gleamed in. Most times, Daddy told us about the many adventures of Ijakpa, the greedy corny tortoise, and his long-suffering wife, Nyonibo. Other times, Daddy told us about his childhood in Elewure. Having spent all our lives in the city, the stories of village life sounded to us like folk tales. One evening, Daddy told us a folk tale about a young man named Alao. Daddy Deep's voice filled the room as he began. "Alo," he said. "Alo." Enyayo and I shouted back. "Orukun tindi tindin, orukun tindi tindin." My story rumbles, flies straight like an arrow and lands on the head of Alao. Alao was a handsome, hard-working young man. When we walked through the village, he made the young maidens giggle shyly behind their fingers. On the days that Alao went to the stream to take his bait, the maidens would line his path with their specially marked loofah sponge. They waited, each anxious for Alao to pick up their sponge as a sign of his interest. But to their dismay, Alao will walk by the sponges with his head up high. Looking at each other with twinkling eyes, Enyayo and I giggled behind our palms. Pausing, Daddy smiled at us. One morning, Alao woke up to a terrible surprise. A sheep horn had grown right on top of his head. A panic, Alao ran to the home of the village medicine man. The villagers woke up to find that Alao had packed up his belongings in the middle of the night and left. His footstep led them straight to the edge of the river. His fishing canoe was gone. They never saw him again. When Daddy finished the story, we sat there quietly. Even Mommy's little fingers stayed still for a while. Enyayo suddenly spoke up. "Daddy," she looked puzzled. "Yes, Arewa." I watched my sister pale face as she searched for the question. "Why? What does it mean?" Daddy at once told us that folk stories were the mediums by which our ancestors taught life lessons. Now, as he smiled proudly at Enyayo, I wish I had been the one to ask the question. "The lesson," he said, "is that if you don't want anyone to know your secret, don't share it with anyone." Despite our age difference, Enyayo, who had inherited Daddy's tall, lean body, quickly towered over me. I was stuck with a shorter, rounder body. To add insult to injury, I also had rickets. My thin legs almost made a perfect zero from my hips down. All through primary school, the boys in my class teased me mercilessly. They walked behind me, mimicking my awkward steps. They even double-dare each other as to who had the courage to squeeze themselves through the space between my legs. One day, out in the schoolyard, I rescued him, for I had sat down hard on his head. The satisfaction of hearing him scream was worth the pain of having my knuckles wrapped with the back of a wooden blackboard eraser. That night, I whispered the story to Auntie Adoni while she prepared our meal, and we both laughed until we heard Mommy in the sitting room. While one of my perfect zero, my legs then looked like the letter K. One afternoon, Mommy caught me staring unhappily in the full-length mirror in her bedroom. Smiling, she put her arm around my shoulders. "Murayo, Kilode, why is your face so long?" Enyayo said that your father not tell you that you look exactly like his mother? Have I not told you that she was a very beautiful woman? Daddy did say that all the time, but I was not so sure. We had only one grainy black and white picture of her in the house. The picture was from Daddy's graduation day. Mother and son stood beside us. Daddy, tall and thin, was dressed in his graduation gown. My grandmother, who barely reached her son's shoulder, had a big gele wrapped around her head, partially covering her face. Daddy was the only one out of his 13 siblings to attend university. Many times, I stared at the grainy picture and wondered what her face shouting our names. She stood at the top of the steps leading to the backyard. Enyayo. In the sitting room, Enyayo's eyes widened when she heard her punishment. As she flung jump around the room 10 times, I too gave Mommy a surprised look. She usually asks us to do Angu 90. To do the punishment, we had to rest our back straight against the wall and pretended we were sitting on a chair. In the elevated squat stance, our arms were stretched out at an angle of 90 degrees to our bodies. If our arms dropped or we sat on our buttocks, we received more punishment time. Mommy gave Enya your unsympathetic look. Yes, next time, before your mouth shoots off like a runaway train, you will remember the train. You will remember the pain. A long rusty razor from his bag. Bag inside. I looked for Enyayo. When I found her in our bedroom, I sat beside her and handed over a half bar. For a minute, Enyayo hesitated and then she accepted my gift. We sat quietly, licking drops of vanilla from our fingers. Christmas is coming. New Year will follow. Mama buy shoe for me. Papa buy dress for me. Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Enyayo sang the song at the top of her lungs as she skipped around the room. It was the Saturday before Christmas. Our cousin, Brother Tayo, Brusty, and his mother, Auntie Tokwe, had come to Ibadan to spend the holiday with us. My grandmother, Mama Ejiwumi, was also visiting. She was napping in the bedroom. Auntie Tokwe and Mommy had left the house, where who did not remarry, poured all her love into their only child. He spent half of his long school holidays with us in Ibadan, and the other half with his father's family in Ilesha. I once heard Auntie Adoni mutter to another cousin, it would have done Tayo some good if his mother had held back some of that love. I did not understand why. Enyayo and I were always happy to have Rusty in the house. Auntie Tokpe had a successful business selling textiles and shoes in Jos, and made sure that our son had more than enough money to spend. His arrival, we immediately started having visions of endless bucket of fan milk ice cream. During his visit, Rusty would entertain us with exciting story about his life in Jos. Once he told us that he was friends with one of the Sultan of Sokoto's son. He said the Sultan's son had invited
praised her daughter. Tokwe, thank God you are back. I saw Tayo take some money from the kitchen table. Aduni needs to go to the market, and Tayo repeated, dropping her handbag on the settee. My eyes followed the handbag as it fell to the floor. It was an Yves Saint Laurent bag. I liked the shiny black leather and wanted to touch it. Mommy did not have any designer bags. We don't have money for me to waste on such frivolous things, she had told me with a sigh when I asked why she did not have nice things like Auntie Tokwe. It's the end of the month. Your father's people will soon be here to ask for money to pay their children's school fees or to start a new business. She gave a bitter laugh. They forget that he too has a family to feed. When he begged them to go to school so that they got dropped. Ah, Tokwe, so my eyes are now too old to see the truth, Abby? She shook her head. Tokwe, you are spoiling this child. It will not end well. Auntie Tokwe's face darkened. I'm not spoiling him, Mama. Is Tayo the only child in this house? She pointed at me and Enyayo, and my sister shrank their finger at. Mama Ejuwumi's voice was sad. Is he not my child too? Auntie Tokwe glared in silence, sighing. Mama Ejumi loosened the top of her wrapper to reveal the clothes money pouch tied around her waist. She unzipped it and counted out some money. Then she beckoned to Auntie Aduni. Come, add this to your money so you can go to the market. Auntie Aduni took the scrunched up notes from Mama Iju and walked out of the house. Bros T followed behind his mother. Mama Ijumi shook her head, watching her daughter and grandson march out of the house with identical frowns on their faces. She sighed. This world has evil and good living side by side, my children, she said. She stood slowly and walked towards the kitchen. But sometimes it is difficult to tell where one ends and the other begins. I had heard much about evil growing up, for we were often told that evil is the barren, one too is the no good stranger lurking at the marketplace, waiting patiently for a chance to steal little children right from under the noses of distracted caregivers. Run away the instant a stranger offers you a smile, Mommy would tell us, but no one told us that sometimes evil is found much closer. They were wrong after all. What I liked most about the new house was that we had our own bedrooms. Enyayo did not like sleeping alone, so she still came to my room at night. She would drag Auntie Aduni's old mattress and place it on the floor beside my bed. Can I move to your room? She begged one night. Mommy said I can if you agree. I promise I won't make too much trouble. Enyayo stuck out her pink lips and batted long pale eyelashes behind her glasses. Trying not to smile, I shook my head, thankful. How many other children have a room to themselves? But something is calling my name at night, Enyayo whined. I pursed my lips in disbelief. When it calls, don't answer. Enyayo's 7th birthday took place 3 months after we moved into the new house. Soon after, we got eyes. She is also as restless as one. I collected the wicker basket from Auntie Morenike and set it down on the dining table. She lifted the blue checkered kitchen toy and revealed a round chocolate cake decorated with multicolored Smarties. Enyayo's face turned red when she saw the cake. She wrapped her arms around Auntie Morenike's waist. It is so beautiful. Thank you. Mommy, who had come home early from her shop for the celebration, gave Auntie Morenike a pleased smile. Morenike, this is really nice. Auntie Morenike waved her hand. It is nothing, Auntie. After we sang the birthday song, Damilare swiped the side of the cake and filled his mouth with Smarties. Auntie Wilder circled around it. His cries made Auntie Aduni look up from her tasks with a smile. Hearing a car honking loudly at the house gates, I quickly rinsed off my hands. Who could be visiting us this early in the day? I opened the padlock and was surprised to see Auntie Toya's door. I knelt down in the warm sand to greet her. Ekaaro, Auntie Tokwe. How was your journey from Jos? Morayo, Kaaro. Our journey went well, Auntie Tokwe said, looking up at the house. She seemed distracted, but she studied me. You're a big girl now. You're almost as... I hadn't seen Auntie Tokwe in almost 2 years. I reached for her handbag and we headed for the house. She looked around the compound and noticed that there were no parked cars. Is your mom home? Yes, ma, she is, I answered. Daddy is traveling on a business trip to Boko. Mommy must have heard Auntie Tokwe's voice through the open windows because she ran out of the house with a wide smile on her chubby face. Enyayo skipped behind her with her half-plaited head. Sister me, Mommy shouted with joy, giving Auntie Tokwe a big hug. I hope everything is okay, but you did not say that you were coming to see us when we spoke last week. I know. Then Auntie stepped back, her mouth wide open in surprise. It is a lie. It appeared into Mommy's bedroom, and I was about to knock on her door when I heard the sound of crying behind it. My hand hovered in front of the door handle. I did not want to get into trouble for interrupting, so I moved closer and pressed my ear against the door. Someone was crying. I heard mommy's soft voice. He's crying. After all, nobody died. Ah, Bisoye, I am finished. Tayo has finished me. Auntie Tokpe wailed. Imagine the audacity to slap your own school principal. Kilo day. And this past long holiday, he and his towel wrapped around her soapy body. Tayo, she blurted out. That wayward boy. He was fine while I took my bath. Mommy shuddered. Only nodded. She started crying. Daddy had been listening from his chair. He bellowed, Tayo. His eyes smoldered. Come here now. Brusty ran into the sitting room. When he saw Daddy's face, he stopped in his tracks. Tayo, is it true? Daddy asked. Brusty's face changed and his dimples chin quivered. Auntie Aduni, me? He quickly prostrated on the carpeted floor. Sir, as God is my witness, I did not go into the bedroom to spy on Sister and I exchanged knowing looks. The number of times we had heard Brusty lie was more than both our fingers and toes combined. And now you fling my shame in my face? Thank you very much, my dear sister. I'm taking my child home today. Mommy did not try to change her mind, and when Auntie Tokwe left to Brusty, the whole house heaved a deep sigh of relief. Later that year, we heard that Brusty was no longer at his private school. A female student in his class reported that he tried to force his way into her bedroom late one night. When Auntie Aduni heard the news, she just shook her head and eased in disgust. Character is like smoke, and no matter how much his mother tries to cover it, that boy's character will eventually rise to the surface. Now, Auntie Aduni, Enyayo, and I all escaped to our bedrooms. No one wanted to be the scapegoat. The next day, Mommy launched a campaign that would have made any army general envious. For weeks, she prepared Daddy's favorite meals. She subjected him to long stretches of silent treatment. Then she slid into balls of crying until Daddy finally caved. It took her over 3 months, but she finally got her way. Yes, Brusty could come and live with us. When Auntie Aduni found out, I knew she was not happy. She would probably have returned to her parents' house if she had a choice in the matter. But instead, she begged Mommy to let her go and live in one of the rooms in the boys' quarters. She knelt before Mommy with tears in her eyes. Please, ma, she begged. If Tayo is coming back to the house, I got cold. Mommy called Enyayo and me aside. You had better stay out of Tayo's way tonight, she warned. Finishing her work in the kitchen, Auntie Aduni greeted Mommy good night and escaped, but I'm not hungry. Mommy gave him a surprised look. You are not hungry? But you have not eaten anything since you came from Jos. Oya Jide, I said, stand up. The food is getting cold. Brusty quietly declined again. Daddy sat behind his newspaper, pretending better than to refuse food because we were angry. A proper koboko whipping would drive the food refusing spirit out of us. Then we would hear the speech about the hungry street orphans who would have gladly exchanged places with us. Lastly, we would sit and had to bring their own wooden tables and chairs from home. Daddy hired a teacher named Mr. Bada from the school to serve as Brusty's private tutor. Mr. Bada came to the house every day after school. Between school, private lessons, and house chores, Daddy was determined that Brusty would have no time on his hands to make mischief, and he did not. Within 1 week, Brusty went from a pampered child driven to his expensive private school to a boy who walked to public school every morning. On Saturday mornings, he rose early to wash the cars, cut the grass, and do other duties around the house. On Brusty's first day of school, the sight of his long, hairy legs sticking out from his gray khaki school shorts sent Enyayo and me rolling with laughter. We both forgot Mommy's warnings. Brust look on her face. Enyayo stopped. But you people are too slow, she said. Hurry! 2 hours later, we had gone on the carousel ride, the dragon roller coaster, and the bomber cars, more than 3 times each. Home? Enyayo shook her head. I don't want to go home yet. I sat on Brusty's lap at the picnic area. He fiddled with my braids. Do we have to go? I did not want to go home either. The park would be open for another 3 hours. Since it was a Saturday evening, there were many children running around. At the table next to ours, a little boy was blowing out candles on his birthday cake. Please, can we go for one more ride on the bomber? Tommy had a maxi chiffon gown with an empire waistline that I had admired. I knew where she had bought the dress at the complex. Can we go to international clothing? Mom said Auntie Tokwe that. Auntie Tokwe had money. She smiled at me. I don't see why not. Enyayo, do you like that store too? Enyayo nodded. Yes, ma. They have very nice dresses. Morayo, when we get to the complex, you can lead the way. Auntie Tokwe said. She bought us 5 imported dresses each. I even found the same dress Tommy had. Only mine had a floral green pattern, while hers was tucked in the tight waistband of his bongo trousers. The black hair of Mr. Ojo's chest coiled over the neckline of his pink shirt. The hair snaked around his neck to join the hairy bush covering half of his face. He even had long hairs growing out of his ears and on each finger knuckle. Behind his back, we called him Missing Link. The boy sitting in front of me, who had been sleeping, nodded his head into the concrete wall beside him. He jerked awake and rubbed his head without a sound, while the rest of us waited for instruction. That boy was always falling asleep at school. Tommy and I thought that perhaps a tsetse fly had bitten him, giving him the sleeping sickness. Looking, she sat cross-legged on the thick layer of sandy creeping fern. Ireti was a class expert on the matters we had learned in biology that day, since she was 13 and repeating the grade. She was also the first girl to grow breasts. Tommy whispered, Ireti, is it true that if you let a boy touch them, she pointed to Ireti's breasts, they will keep growing bigger and bigger? We all watched Ireti expectantly. Our mothers had told us this. Could it be untrue? Ireti rolled her eyes and smiled knowingly. It is not. That evening after school, I saw Kachi at his mother's kiosk. I was buying a bottle of palm oil, and as he handed me the change, his long, warm fingers lingered over mine. I snatched my hand away, remembering the disturbing looks from him during biology class. Mumbling a quick thank you, I turned to hurry home. Marayo, he called. I stopped. Are you coming to watch me play football tomorrow evening? Kachi had never asked me that before. The boys in our neighborhood were on the football field, rain or shine, and we girls were their official supporters club. We pretended to be near the school field. We girls were rarely his targets. Bembe soon started describing the latest escapade of B's father, who was legendary for his ability to sniff out to knock on a door just when the food was brought to the table. When the other men went to work in the morning, he was often seen lounging about, a chewing stick in his mouth and a wrapper tied loosely around his waist. B's father will easily win the award for the most shameless man on our street, Bembe said, laughing. I felt sorry for B when I saw the shame that clouded his eyes before he too joined awkwardly in the other boys' laughter. Kachi must have seen the look on B's face too, because he quickly spoke up. By the way, B chews raw cassava every evening. He can fight me and win. He had better think again. B gently laid his hand on Kachi's arm. Kachi, don't mind Bembe, this house. After that day, Kachi stopped coming to the football field. I still saw him at school and at his mother's kiosk, but I found it was not the same watching the game without seeing Kachi's tall, slim figure running across the field. A couple of months after the incident on the field, Morayo, wait! Kachi ran towards me, panting slightly. He stopped at my side. Where are you going? And why are you asking? I replied, lifting my eyebrow. This was our usual routine, but I did not want her to see Kachi waiting for me. Shrugging her shoulders, I found Kachi and Sheson sitting outside Sheson's house. When the boy saw me, Sheson got up and went inside his bungalow. You did not stay long at all, Kachi said as he approached. I told you. Kachi held a polythene bag of agbalumo that he had picked from the starting to get dark. But I wanted to hear what Kachi had to say. I knew a place where we could sit and talk. The same grassy ridge where Tommy, Enyayo, and I went to wave at the trains. Sitting with my legs tucked under my skirt, I rubbed an agbalumo with both hands to soften it. I split the ripe fruit open and ate the pulp, wincing at the sweet and sour taste. I could not go. Tommy. On the days where I could not get Tommy to leave her house with me, Enyayo would come. Her prize was usually a bottle of Fanta and one packet of Okin biscuits. She would sit happily at one end of the wooden bench, sipping on her cold Fanta, while Kachi and I sat at the other end, giggling and whispering. Whenever Mommy or Auntie Aduni sent me to Kachi's mother's kiosk to buy something, I would put Vaseline petroleum jelly on my lips to make them shine. On the days when Mama Kachi was not at the kiosk, Kachi would ask one of his younger sisters, either Adana or Ogadimma, to mind the kiosk while he walked me halfway home, drop it, and walk ahead of me. We could not risk being. When our classmates realized that Kachi and I were in like with each other, they teased us endlessly. I laughed with them, but in truth, something was going on inside of me, and I did not know how to put my new emotions into words. I was growing hair in new places and thinking about Kachi all the time. I was afraid to share these feelings with friends, even Tommy. What if my secret got out? What if my mother heard about it? In her bedroom, I was folding her newly washed clothes, and she was arranging them inside the wardrobe. Mommy, yes, Morayo, what is it? I have been feeling funny. Biting my lips, I stopped. I was having new feelings about boys. Mommy suddenly slammed the wardrobe door shut. The wooden door rattled on its hinges. Startled, I jumped back. Morayo, what kind of nonsense talk is this? She wagged her finger. Listen. Your job right now is to focus on your books and behave like the well-brought-up child you are. Have you heard me? Yes, Mommy. I beat down hard on the inside of my cheek and picked up the empty laundry basket. I left the room. I should have known better than to ask her anything. During this time, it suddenly felt strange when Brusty pulled me onto his laps when we sat in the sitting room. Some days, he would sneak up behind me and hug me tightly, laughing as if we were playing a game. But it was starting to feel like a game whose rules I did not know. Sometimes in the cousins, she did not treat me as if I was an annoying child. Even when she did not answer my questions directly, she never scolded me for being too inquisitive. Maybe it was because of her experience. Years ago, I overheard another cousin say that Auntie Morenike's child, Damilare, was a result of her experience with men. That it was a shame that Damilare had no father to speak of. Auntie Morenike reminded me of an agbalumo fruit. The sourness of this first bite would make me clench my teeth, but as I chewed on its fleshy pulp, it would become sweeter and remind me of why I had bothered to climb its tree in the first place. Getting to know Auntie Morenike was like that. At first, Enyayo and I were scared of her because of her no-nonsense attitude and prickly demeanor. But as she spent more and more time with us, we grew to love her kindness and sweet generosity. At family, who were always grateful for an errand to her, I could hear the smile in her voice. Yes, I did. Surprised, I turned around to look at her. She was trying to conceal a smile. You did? Is that not a bad thing? Have they probably could not stand on their coiled up toes. Well, sometimes we hold hands. I paused. But sometimes I feel Auntie Morenike frowned. Funny. I don't know. But I did know. Looking around, I whispered, sometimes I want him to put his arms around me. Ah, Auntie Morenike's expression softened. Morayo, listen to me. Those feelings are part of growing up, but sometimes they make you want to do things that you are too young to do. My dear, it is not those things Ireti told us girls about, the things she said no one would ever know. I looked at Auntie Morenike great from the sweat on his quickened breath. He pointed his nose, poked right into my broad, flat face. I could not breathe. Kachi had to tweet his head to one side. I decided to keep my lips together since he had his own lips pressed together. When our lips touched, we pressed them hard together for about a minute and then sprang apart. We looked at each other and began to laugh. I decided that the next time Kachi kissed me, I would keep my eyes closed. When I got home, Brusty was there alone. I must have walked in with a funny look because he kept glancing at me as I sat at the dining table, cutting up carrots and green pepper for our New Year's Day. Mommy did not ask me where I had disappeared to after the service. Enyayo did. Morayo, where did you go? She asked as she sat next to me. Tommy and I were looking for you outside the church. Looking a few moments of yelling, he found a customer in one of the three-story multi-tenanted Face Me, I Face You buildings across the road. We chatted amiably until we saw Brusty approach. His face darkened. He barely acknowledged our greetings. He just marched past us into the compound. Kachi and Sheson quickly said their goodbyes. When I went inside, Brusty was waiting in the sitting room. Who are those boys? Surprised at the angry tone of his voice, I said, they are my friends. You know them? They both live down the street. He scolded, your friends? What kind of foolish talk is that? Who told you boys and girls can be friends? I was silent, unsure how to respond. You mean your boyfriends? My heart dropped. What? He licked the soup off his fingers. Later that night, as I lay coiled in my bed, frustrated tears filled my eyes. I knew Mommy would now be watching me like a hawk. It would be, it would, it would make it much harder for me to see Kachi after school. My bedroom door creaked open and Enyayo came into the room. She never bothered with knocking before coming in. She sat beside me on the bed with a word. Rayo, is it that bad now? Okay, I'm sorry. I should not have mentioned anything to Auntie Bisoye after those boys. I was surprised to hear his apology. He never said he was sorry for anything. Seeing that he had my attention, blinded by his brilliant white teeth, I felt my anger recede. My lip curved into a smile. Yes. He looked pleased. In that case, will you come and give me a hug? Still embarrassed that he had seen me naked, I reluctantly dragged myself from the bed. I bent. So, no more silent treatment, he asked with an exaggerated wink. Of the time, Kachi and I sat and talked. I would not let him put his hand under my clothes. 2 weeks before the end of the school year, a somber-looking Kachi told me that his family was moving back to the east. His father was starting a civil service job at the Anambra State Ministry of Works and Transport office at Awka. Kachi, who was from Anambra State, said that his parents were happy to be moving closer to their families. We looked at each other with reddened eyes. What would happen to us? The evening before they left for Awka, Kachi came to find me to say goodbye. He could not just knock on the front door to ask for me, so he sent his younger sister Adana to ask for Enyayo. For a quick tight hug, he whispered, "I love you, Morayo," in my ear. Then he ran off to join his sister. All the way home, I smiled through my tears. I got only 2 letters from Kachi 2 months after he moved away. Sheson squeezed a crumpled up airmail envelope into my hand when we were walking back to our classroom after the morning school assembly. I quickly hid the envelope inside my skirt pocket. It was all I could think about during morning class. During our first break, I locked myself into one of the cubicles in the girls' toilet and opened the envelope. Kachi had written the 4-page letter on lined paper he must have torn out from the middle of his school exercise book. I smiled when I saw the regular heart shapes drawn around the edges of the pages and read the first paragraph. "My sweetest paragon of beauty, aka Morayo. I hope this letter meets you in an extraordinary state. A picture of you so that I could stop squeezing my eyesight to see your face. My friends say that I am stupid for thinking that you will wait for me. They say that we are too young, but I never argue with them. It is because they don't know you." I quickly sent a reply, but nothing else ever came from Kachi. Eventually, I stopped looking expectantly at Session when I saw him at school. Kachi's name remained unspoken between us, with each that remained stuffed, hidden from mommy inside a little opening in my mattress. Chapter 6. The wicked one forgets kinship of the school year quickly flew past. By the time the school holidays ended, Brosty had completed all his examinations. With a lot of spare time in his hands, Brosty began spending more time with 2 friends he had met at Havana, the beer parlor on the next street. Over to Havana to drink Heineken beer and eat fried snails. Enyayo and I heard whispers that other things happened there, but we never went inside. If we had to go fetch Brosty, we would stand by the swinging beaded doorways curtain until somebody noticed us and asked who we were looking for. The only thing that deterred Enyayo from going inside was the stench of cigarette smoke. It always made her feel sick. The only thing that stopped me from the promise of mommy's rot. The only thing that stopped me was the promise of mommy's rot. I'm not sure if mommy and daddy noticed Brusty's behavior. If they did, I did not hear them talk about it. Maybe they felt that he deserved some reward for all his hard work at school. I cannot remember any clear warning signs. I did not stub my left big toe that week. Neither did I hear the owl hoot in the night among the trees. But I did wake up drenched in sticky sweat one morning. By 10 o'clock, I was burning up with fever and shaking with chills. From the way my body ached and from the bitter taste in my mouth, I knew I had malaria. Because of my AA genotype, I was prone to malaria attacks. Enyayo had daddy's AS genotype, so she was lucky. She fell sick maybe once a year. My sickness could not have come at a more inconvenient time. Auntie Aduni's older sister was getting married in Ilorin on the weekend. Auntie Aduni had left Ibadan the week before so that she could help her mother prepare for the wedding. Mommy, Enyayo, and I were to leave that afternoon for Ilorin. Daddy was away on a business trip. Brosty had told Mommy that he did not want to attend the wedding, so he was staying behind at home. Mommy quickly started me on chloroquine tablets. I was not sure what I hated more, the bitter, as if she was unsure what to do. Enyayo was in the bridal train as one of the flower girls. She had to take Enyayo to the wedding, but how could she leave a sick child at home? When Brosty said he would take care of me, I saw the reluctance in Mommy's eyes. Mama Comfort was also around if I needed help. Mommy seemed relieved. She said she would ask Mommy Comfort to visit the house and promised that they would leave for Ibadan immediately after the wedding reception. We will be gone only one night, she said gently before they left. Brusty came back to the house later with Jimmy. He also brought back a polythene bag full of roasted spicy suya and a carton of Guinness. I was in the sitting room watching television in the silent house. When I saw the little group, I realized Brusty must have been planning this little rendezvous since the day he knew we were all going to Ilorin for the wedding. I did not like these friends, and the smell of the spicy suya only made me feel even more nauseated. So I finally decided to go to bed. Good night, Brusty. By now, Brusty and his friends had almost finished the carton of beer. Empty bottles littered the floor beside them. Brusty waved his hand in the air in response. I could feel Brusniro's eyes on me as I walked out of the room. As I changed into my nightgown, I could hear raised voices coming from the sitting room. I wrapped my cover cloth around myself and made my way quietly down the corridor. I could hear Busty's loud, angry voice. Nero, what kind of nonsense talk is this? My friend, face your brain and shut your mouth. Mariah is still a small girl. Do you think she's one of those Havana prostitutes you parade as your girlfriends? I rubbed my pounding head. Why were they arguing about me? But Jimmy's drunken laughter drifted out into the corridor. Small girl? Is it because we did not tell you we saw Mariah sneaking around with the Igbo boy who used to live down the street? I froze. They had seen Kachi and me. Tayo, didn't you sleep with my little sister? Abeg, leave Nero alone. Jimmy, please leave that one. You and I know that half of Eleyele has slept with your sister. Brusty laughed scornfully. I heard another drunken laugh. Fine, I agree with you about my sister, but I can bet you that Mariah is no longer a virgin. So what's your problem? Thank you, my brother, said Brusniro. I don't know why he's suddenly being stingy. His voice became softer. Otayo, is it that you want her for yourself? I jumped when I heard a loud bang on the table and the sound of a bottle crashing to the floor. Brusty swore loudly. God punish the two of you. Is this nonsense talk my reward for buying beer for you two fools? Before I get back, you had better find your way to your houses. Hearing the sound of a chair pushed back, I made a silent dash for my bedroom, where I lay in bed for a while. No wonder Brusty warned me against being too friendly with his friends. I shivered, promising myself never to be alone with them. Just before I drifted off to sleep, I smiled, remembering Enyayo's excitement earlier in the day as they left for Ilorin. It was the first time she would be in a bridal train. I realized then how much I missed her constant chatter. This was also the first time we were spending the night apart. I reassured myself that Mommy and Enyayo would be back the next day. I dozed off and then woke to the firm pressure of a large coarse hand across my mouth. My cover cloth was yanked away and flung to the floor. My heart raced, and I could hear the blood rushing through my brain. It had finally happened. At night, the gunshots from the neighborhood vigilante group who patrolled the estate kept us up. The armed robbers still attacked, killing two members of the vigilante group and tying their bodies to the street light poles. The robbers, angry that several tenants did not have large sums of money at home, punished them by forcing some of the male tenants to sleep with their neighbors' wives while their husbands watched. By daybreak, the block of flats was empty. Under cover of night, the tenants had fled the building. After the incident, Mommy had begged Daddy to keep a little stash. Did not allow me to throw up. Desperate to free myself, I struggled under his weight. He whispered softly into my ear, "Stop this nonsense or I'll call Jimmy and Nero to come. I'm sure they'll be very happy to join us. Is that what you want?" I shook my head wildly side to side. "Please." I stilled my thrashing limb. I heard the metal rings of the bed creak as Brusty stretched out his long, heavy body on top of mine. One of his hands roughly pushed up my nightgown. As he moved on top of me, my chest tightened. I felt as if I was suffocating. He pushed his hand between my thighs. When he ripped apart my underwear, my body shook. I was not sure how long I stared back until mercifully sleep took me. It came and took me away to a safe, happy place, a place with Enyayo. Busy, I found her playing hide and seek in our grandfather's compound in Oyo, laughing. I pulled away from her grasp, running into the large cornfield beside the house. When I glanced back, I saw that Enyayo was not running after me. She was waiting for our playmates, busy to catch up. Giggling, I ran between the long corn stalks onto the middle of my head, melting the heavy pomade from the corner of his eyes. I bolted up in bed. My heart pounded hard against my rib cage. Looking around at the familiar yellow walls of my bedroom, I realized that I had been dreaming. The early morning sunlight streamed into the room through the sheer window curtains. I felt a strange stiffness in my lower body. For a moment, my mind was blank. Then I looked up and saw the wall gecko. It was still staring down from that same spot on the ceiling. Memories of the night scrubbed them, the brighter they grew. I scrubbed furiously at the red spots until my fingers became raw from the caustic soda soap. Of father rice, the other palm oil stew and fried mackerel. All the while, Mama Comfort was talking softly. I was sure you must be feeling some discomfort. Auntie Aduni arriving in a brown and yellow taxi cab. A shrieking Enayo flew out of the car and ran towards me. Morayo, we are back, she said as she put her arms around my neck. Mommy brought you some dankwa. Can I have some? Laughing, Auntie Aduni shook her head. Looking at her glowing face, I could tell that Enyayo had enjoyed her time. Too long after, Brusty arrived in front of the house on an Okada, and from the look on his face, he was clearly not sure of the reception that would be waiting for him. When he walked in through the gate and saw Mommy smile, he prostrated flat on the ground, greeting Mommy and Daddy. I picked up Mommy's traveling bag right now and see what he wants. Shaking her head, she watched me drag my reluctant feet to his room before climbing the stairs to her own bedroom. When I entered his room, Busty pushed me roughly onto his bed. So you think you can escape from me? That day, I felt a deep anger towards Mommy. Start to bubble inside of me. 3 months later, I had my first menstrual period. I did not tell Mommy. I still had Mama Comfort sanitary pads, and Mommy was not going to notice anyway, I told myself. But I was wrong. This time she did notice. That afternoon, Mommy walked into the kitchen. Morayo, when you are done washing those plates, please come to my room. I want to talk to you. She was sitting on her bed when I came in. Please, my daughter, don't bring disgrace to our family's name. I almost burst out into bitter laughter. I wanted to tell her she did not have to worry about the boys at school. That day, to celebrate my transition into womanhood, Mommy asked Brusty to kill one of her prized chickens for our nightly meal. On another night, I might have waved that chicken drumstick in a victory dance while basking in the warmth of Mommy's affection and Enyayo's envy. But that night, I ate the drumstick in silence. It was like eating molded sawdust. The following night, when Brusty came to my room and touched my body, I started to shout at the top of my lungs, "Help! Somebody please help me!" 2 concerned pairs of eyes looked down at me. They belonged to the young men following me, but I realized then that they were complete strangers. Definitely not Bros, Nero, and Jimmy. They reached into the gutter and pulled me out, wrinkling their noses at the smell. "Why were you running?" one of them asked. "We started walking fast because we saw you running." What did you see behind us? I did not see anything, I said. I was gasping for air. I was running because I was in a hurry to get home. It was partly the truth, but I could tell they did not believe me. Shaking their heads, they went on their way. When I finally dragged myself home, I treated my scrapes with iodine and took some Panadol extra. My body was aching all over. Surely everything had to be fine now. I had cheated death again. Later that night, I felt cramping in my stomach. The cramps intensified, coming rapidly in waves. I clutched my stomach in pain, coiling up in my bed. Eventually, I got up and rolled on the tiled floor of my room, in between my thighs. Puzzled, I reached down. My fingers were covered in blood. I dragged myself to the bathroom. Bending over the bathtub, I felt my stomach clench and a flood came gushing down my legs. I climbed into the bathtub, forcing myself to swallow my cries. With each stomach cramp, the bleeding came heavier, the clots larger. Soon, the bathtub was filled with a dark red pool around me. From the bathroom, I heard the loud chime of the clock. Around 5 in the morning, the bleeding finally started to slow down until I realized it had stopped. I beat hard on my lip when I turned on the tap and it ran dry. There was no water in the overhead tank. I lifted the lid to the water drum in the bathroom. Luckily, there was just enough water for me to wash away the blood and take a cold shower. Back in my room, as soon as my head touched the pillow, I fell into a deep sleep. Enyayo woke me 2 hours later. It was time for our morning chores. Outside, when I started sweeping the compound, I felt the ground rise up to meet me. When I came to realize that only a few moments had passed, for everyone was still inside. I could hear Enyayo chattering with Auntie Aduni in the kitchen. No one had even noticed. The day dragged on painfully, and by evening I could not wait for the bed. I could not yet bear the thought of saying anything to Mommy and Daddy, but suddenly that changed. Maybe I was just tired of the silent screams in my head, or maybe it was the sight I walked in on later that afternoon. Mommy had just finished her afternoon meal. She asked me to take her plate and tumbler to Enyayo, who was washing dishes in the kitchen. When I walked in, Brusty was standing right behind Enyayo, rubbing his body against her back. Enyayo was standing at the sink with her hands in soapy water, laughing, trying to push him away with her elbow. Brusty, please. I recognized that look on his face. The porcelain plate dropped from my hand. It hit the cement and shattered into little pieces all over the floor. Brusty jerked quickly away from Enyayo. Startled, he glared at me. Then he left the kitchen through the back door. Mommy hurried in. She found me staring at the shards on the floor. Morayo, what happened? She asked in annoyance. When I was silent, she just sighed and asked me to get the broom. Your daydreaming is just getting worse and worse. What are you always thinking of? That evening, we sat at the dining table quietly eating our night meal. Auntie Aduni was in the kitchen. She had once told me, I prefer eating alone, you know. I don't want anyone staring at my mouth as I chew. The only sounds in the dining room were our spoons scraping our plates. Meal times are for eating and not talking, Daddy always said. I was about to lift a spoonful of rice and beans to my mouth when I suddenly laid the spoon down. I looked around the table. Then my voice rang out clearly in the silence. Brusty has been coming to my room at night. A spoon clattered to the table. Daddy's face hardened. Mommy gasped. A puzzled look clouded Enyayo's face. On the opposite side of the table, the vein on the side of Brusty's head was pulsating so fast. I was afraid it would explode and spray us all with blood. I exhaled, sitting back in my chair. Mommy's eyes filled with tears. She placed both her shaking hands on top of her head. Daddy's spoonful of rice and beans hung halfway to his mouth as it were suddenly unsure of his destination. We all watched as he slowly dropped it and picked up his tumbler of water. Rusty flinched as if he thought Daddy might fling the tumbler in his direction. He crouched back in his chair, holding both arms in front of his face. Daddy took a long sip and gently set the tumbler down. While his face gave nothing away, his trembling hands told a different story. He was a man fighting hard for composure. Daddy's tumbler had red streaks around the rim. His blood pressure had shot up and his gums were bleeding. Mommy's eyes widened when she saw the bloody streaks. Getting up from her chair at the other end of the table, she walked over to his side. She laid her hand on Daddy's arm, silently pleading with him. The brownish white ceiling fan above the dining table continued to turn slowly, like an old woman carefully stirring a pot. Its familiar creaking was the only sound in the humid room. Morayo, Enyayo, go to your rooms now, Daddy ordered quietly. Poor Enyayo, looking baffled, quickly got to her feet and headed for the entryway. She looked around, still unsure as to what had just happened. Reluctantly, I followed her. As we exited the room, I took a quick look back. Daddy was standing. He held tightly onto the dining table, looking down at Rusty, who was now prostrated, face flat on the floor before him. Mommy was kneeling beside Daddy's feet, tugging at his trouser, silently pleading for her nephew. In that moment, my anger towards Mommy reignited. She should have been worried about me. She should have been coming after me. I followed a pale Enyayo back to her bedroom. By now, she knew something was very wrong. She kept asking, Morayo, why is Daddy angry with Rusty? But I refused to answer. After a while, she started to cry. I wanted to scream at her to shut up, but seeing her tears melted my anger. I snuggled with her under her cover cloth, linking my fingers through hers. Don't be angry. Do you want me to tell you a story? Enyayo nodded. Hello, I said. Hello, Enyayo's small voice whispered back. I swallowed the lump in my throat. One day, Ijakpa the tortoise woke up and declared that he was going to be the wisest creature in the whole world. He decided to gather up all the wisdom in the world to keep for him only. So Ijakpa hung a big gourd around his neck and went around gathering wisdom across the lands. After he was done, he decided to hide the gourd at the top of a very tall palm tree. But every time Ijakpa tried to climb up the tree, the gourd would get between him and the palm tree, and he would fall off. An ant strolling by stopped and watched the tortoise. Why don't you hang the gourd on your back so that you can climb the tree? The ant asked Ijakpa. Then Ijakpa realized that the ant was right. He became very angry. He did not have all the wisdom in the world after all. He flung the gourd on the ground, and all the wisdom he had gathered went back into the world. Enyayo fell asleep. Even in her slumber, she troubled. She kept mumbling, rolling, and kicking me with her feet and arms, straining my ears.
I listened. Really quiet. I wanted to leave the room and find out what was happening, but I remembered Daddy's command. I got up from Enyayo's bed and stood by the window, staring into the starless night. I heard the compound gate opened and the sound of an engine. Daddy's car. Where was it going so late at night? I kept staring at the door. I waited for Mommy. I was sure he would come and look for me. Finally, just before dawn, I fell asleep on the floor beside Enyayo's bed. When I woke up, I was alone in the room. I soon found out that Mommy and Daddy had left the house during the night with Rusty in tow. Chapter 8. A child does not die because the mother's breasts are dry. Sitting on Enyayo's bed that morning, a story Daddy told us a few years back came to my mind. The story started with the rich man dragging a poor man before the king's court, respectfully removing his beaded velvet cap, the rich man prostrated before the king. He explained that one of his housemen had found the poor man lurking behind his kitchen walls. Great king, earlier this afternoon, my dearest wife's pot of chicken stew was smearing on the stove. The aroma was drifting out of the kitchen window. Pointing a trembling finger at the man groveling on the ground before the king, the rich man continued whilst anger dripped from his every word. This wretched man was cowering beside my wall like the pathetic thief that he is. Not only did he have the audacity to stand behind my kitchen window uninvited, he proceeded to eat the morsel of cassava fufu with the smell of my wife's stew. An audible gasp went up from the spectators at the king's court. The poor man hid his face in the sleeve of his buba in shame. Surely, great king, you agree that this man is a blatant thief. Lazy men like him are unwanted blight on our illustrious community. Who knows where he stole the fufu he is clutching in his hand? He deserves to be flogged. Better still, he should be thrown into the dungeon for a week. I know that you are a fair ruler and I have come to you to seek justice. Great king, may the crown stay long on your head and the royal shoes on your feet. The rich man gathered his beautifully parted agbada around himself and marched to his seat with a poised expression. Those sitting close by patted his shoulder in sympathy. The poor man, hearing his accuser's speech, cried out in a weak voice, "Mercy, mercy, great king, have mercy on your wretched servant. It is true that I stole the smell of his wife's stew, but please believe me that I did not steal this fufu in my hand. I received it as a payment for my work on Baba Ojikutu's farm. Please, do not send me to the maddening darkness of the dungeon. Tomorrow, I must work as a hired laborer. If I do not work, my children will not eat. I am all they have. Their mother died 2 months ago, with our last child still in her stomach. I will take the flogging that I deserve, but please, temper your justice with mercy, great king." Some spectators eased, trust shameless men to come up with excuses. Was he the first person to lose a wife? But the king looked thoughtfully at both men. The rich man shook in his seat with righteous fury. The poor man groveled on the ground with the pitiful ball of fufu clutched tightly in his hand. After a period of silence, the king nodded and passed his judgment. "In this illustrious community of ours, we have no place for thieves. A man must tighten the string of his trousers and eat from the sweat of his brow. Inasmuch as this poor man admits that he stole the smell of the rich man's soup, I hereby pronounce that his shadow be flogged 49 times for the crime." The poor man wept in gratitude. His accused, but he bowed before the king in acceptance of the decree and exceeded the court. The punishment should always fit the crime, should it not? Stepping out of Eniayo's room, I looked down the corridor, and Theodoni was sweeping Brotti's room. I heard the clock chime 10 o'clock. Eniayo must have left for school. Hearing my footsteps, Auntie Adoni looked up from the sweeping. She stood still, watching me approach. Her face held no expression. She did not say a word. I kept quiet as well, stopping at the door of Brosti's bedroom and looking around. All his things were gone. Even the bed had been stripped of its sheets. It was as if he had never lived there. I turned and walked back to my bedroom. I could feel Auntie Adoni's bloodshot eyes boring into the back of my head. Murayo, she called me. I turned back. I'm sorry, she said. I nodded. I knew what she meant. She swallowed hard. Tayo was no good. He should never have been allowed to come back here. From my bedroom window, I saw Auntie Adoni continue to sweep out into the courtyard of the compound. She stopped, staring at the pile of dirt, her hand wiping her wet eyes. She took a deep breath and continued to sweep along a straight path toward the gate. Then she opened the gate, sweeping the sand and debris, and that from Rusty's room, pushing every presence of him out of the house and onto the road. Daddy and Mommy drove Broti back to his mother's home in Jos. It was an 18-hour round trip. Enyayo and I were in the city when they came back late the next day. When Daddy opened the door and saw me, he stopped. His shoulders slumped as he turned, his tired-looking face away. Mommy, who came in after him, stared at me with bloodshot eyes. Enyayo ran to them. Ekabo, she said with a smile. I stayed where I was and remained quiet. Mommy gave Enyayo a quick hug. Oya, go and tell Adoni that we are back, she said. Enyayo ran to the kitchen. Daddy walked toward the staircase leading to the bedroom, leaving Mommy and me alone in the room. Mommy's red-rimmed eye filled with fresh tears. She looked at me and sighed. Then she too turned around, leaving the room. I stared after them with my heart pounding in my chest. It felt as if it was going to break. In the months that followed, I lived a double life. At school, I pasted a happy smile on my face and pretended that everything was okay. Tommy was the only one who sensed that something was wrong with me. Murayo, you are not talking much, she said one day after school. And you always have something to do when I ask you to come and visit me. Is it because you are missing Kachi? I forced a smile to my face. I'm sorry. I have not been coming to see you. I have not been feeling well lately. Maybe I'm missing Kachi. Tommy gave me an understanding pat on the arm. A part of me was glad that Kachi was not around. How would I have kept my secret from him? Some days I wanted to tell Tommy that what happened with Brosty. My mouth would open and close several times, yet I knew that I could not tell her anything. If you don't want everyone to know your secrets, you don't share it with anyone. At home, I could not get away from the unasked question in my parents' eyes as they lingered on my face. I no longer slept well at night, and my mind would play those questions over and over. Why did you not say something the first time? Why did you let it go on for so long? Why did you let this happen to you? Even when I turned away from their gaze, I could not escape the shame that followed me around like a bad smell. I found the truth hard to admit, even to myself, that after a while, Brosty's violation had lost its strangeness. It had become familiar. With each passing month, his hand at my neck became gentler and gentler until there was no need for it to remain there. This is what you want, he whispered in my ear on so many nights. Crying, I would shake my head vehemently. No, please. Brosty's response was always to stroke the inside of my thigh until I sucked in a breath and began to moan. See, he would say in a confident tone, it is what you want, you just don't know it yet. My body responded to the stroke and caresses of his rough hand in ways that I now wished I could forget. And after a while, I began to believe him. For what kind of girl has such feelings? Was it my fault too? Was it my fault too? Could that explain mom and daddy's unbroken silence? There were many days when every part of my body felt too heavy to move. When lifting and arm or leg in the morning was painful. Striking back in the seat. Mommy opened the envelope and pulled out the letter. Enyayo and I sat across, wondering why she had summoned us. Reading the letter, she smiled. Enyayo, it is from the Federal Government Girls College in Oyo. You are admitted. You will be going to school this September. My heart started pounding. Enyayo was going to school. I am going to a boarding school. Enyayo asked. This was the first time we were hearing of this. I knew that Enyayo had written the admission for federal government colleges. But I had always hoped she would join me at my secondary school. Yes, your father thinks it will be good for you. Mommy said. Oyo is not far away, and your grandmother lived there. Enyayo face. Don't worry. Come and see you during your visiting days. The word flew out of my mouth. Mommy, why? She turned to me. Murayo, what did you say? At first, I kept quiet. I had never questioned Mommy's decision before. At least, not to her face. But I felt a strange boldness come over me. Are you sending Enyayo away because of me? Because of what happened? Mommy snapped. Murayo, stop it. She glanced at Enyayo's curious face and then back to me. What is wrong with you? Her hand filled with the admission letter. You should be happy for your sister. Boarding school will teach her independence. She needs to be able to take care of herself. I heard what she left unsaid. I had failed Enyayo as a big sister. I held Mommy's gaze. She averted her eyes. Things are different now. Her voice straight off. This is for the best. The night before Enyayo left for school, she came to my room after Mommy and Daddy had gone upstairs. Murayo, are you still awake? I dried my eyes with my cover clothes before I faced her. But my swollen eyes must have given me away. Murayo, why are you crying again? She asked. Looking at the worried pink face, I tried smiling through fresh tears. I was going to miss her so much. The lump in my throat grew larger. I'm not crying. It is just raining inside my eyes. Enyayo gave me a puzzled look and then smudged inside me in the bed, slipping her hands in mine. Maybe it will make your pretty eyelashes grow faster, she asked with a wobbly smile. I shook my head and hugged her. Only Enyayo would say something like that. We spent most of the night whispering about what life at boarding school would be like. Auntie Morenike had already told Enyayo that the food was going to be very small. Although Enyayo liked to eat, she was more worried about the fagging by senior students. Junior students had to carry out menial tasks for seniors who took advantages of the system. One of her visits, Auntie Morenike told us that one night she had spent her entire prep time running around, killing mosquitoes in the senior class. If any of the seniors felt a mosquito bite, she got a knock on the head. Murayo, what if they don't like me? I knew what she meant. How would the other girls treat her as an afin? I squeezed her hand. They will like you. Remember, Auntie Morenike's friend is a teacher at the school. If you need help, you have to go and tell her. Okay? Enyayo nodded. The next day, the picture of Enyayo's teary-faced talk in my mind as we drove away from the school and back to Ibadan. The dark clouds surrounding the grid, even bigger. Back at the house felt empty and quiet. The following month, Auntie Adoni finished a program at the catering school and announced that she was leaving. Mommy tried to convince her to stay in Ibadan. Daddy even said they would open up a shop for her, but Auntie Adoni insisted that she go back to Ilorin. Her aging mother needed her. It was time for her to go. Daddy bought her a brand new oven and fridge along with other small items she could use to start a catering business. An overwhelmed Auntie Adoni knelt before Mommy and Daddy and wept with gratitude. Before the bus hired to take her back home arrived, Auntie Adoni called me into her old room. She opened her handbag and brought out some money. Take it, Murayo, and use it to buy something for yourself, okay? She reached into the handbag again and brought out a brown envelope. This is Enyayo's money. Maybe you can buy something to take to her on visiting day. Tears came to my eyes. Thank you, Auntie. Auntie Adoni gave me a tight hug. Be a good girl, okay? Don't let me hear that you are not behaving yourself. Promise me that you will ask to visit me in Ilorin. Too choked up to talk, I nodded. Minutes later, after 10 long years with us, Auntie Adoni too was gone. 2 weeks later, we received Enyayo's first letter from school. She wrote that she had eaten all her provisions and wanted to come back home. She would have to have all her hair cut because she had caught lies from another girl in the dormitory. Daddy sent his driver, Mr. Bello, to Oyo with a box of cornflakes, a tin of powdered milk, some gari, and a box of sugar. He also sent along a letter to Enyayo stating that she could not come home. Most days after school, I was the only one at home. Mommy said that I was now old enough to do all the housework. We did not need to have any house help. Although she did not say it, I knew no other relative would come to live with us. Daddy and Mommy both spent more and more time away from home. They still did not speak to me about Brosti. On Enyayo's first visiting day, Daddy drove us down to Oyo to see her. I had not seen her for almost 3 months. It was the longest time we had been apart. We waited for Enyayo under the shade of a tree near the administrative building. A carton of provision and a basket of cooked food sat on a wooden bench and table. Mommy was able to find a student who knew Enyayo, and the older girl said that they live in the same residence and would let her know she had visitors. I finally saw Enyayo running toward us, but she was not alone. Another girl dressed in the same red checkered day wear was trying to keep up with her. When Enyayo reached where I stood, she screamed and flew into the open arms. Morayo! I hugged her and tried to blink back my tears. Enyayo, you have grown taller. She laughed. It is because of the beans and weevils they feed us. After she knelt and greeted Mommy and Daddy, Enyayo motioned to her friend. The other girl had been standing aside and watching us. Mommy, this is my friend, Awa. Since the parents can't come for visiting day, I asked her to come with me. Good afternoon, ma'am, Awa said in a shy voice. Mommy smiled at the girl. Awa, it is nice to meet you. Come and sit. There is plenty of food for all of us. As I looked at the happy smile on Enyayo's face, I knew how special this friend must be for her. Awa was an Afin too. Throughout the visit, they held each other's hand. On your way back to Ibadan, on our way back to Ibadan, I told myself that it was a good thing that Enyayo had found a friend. Still, I wondered, who needed me now? The cold knot deep inside me that had come after that first night with Brusty pulled tight until I could barely breathe from the pain. Morayo, are you ready? Mommy asked as she popped her head into my bedroom. We need to get going. A relative was having a 20-year memorial party for his late mother. I did not know how to tell Mommy that I just wanted to be left alone. Her eyes widened when she saw me. You are not yet dressed. No, ma. I have a headache. I had started getting migraine headache shortly after Brusty left the house. I did not have one, but Mommy did not know that. Sighing, she left. She soon came back with a bottle of Panadol Extra and a cup of water. Take this, it will help. Thank you, ma. Mommy watched me swallow the tablets. Before she and Daddy left the house, Mommy came back to check on me. Morayo, I pretended I was asleep. Later, I had Daddy's car drive out of the compound. When I was sure they were gone, I sat up. I was beginning to develop a headache. Seeing the medicine bottle on the table, I suddenly wondered what it would feel like to empty the entire bottle into my mouth. As soon as the thought came, my body became rigid. This thought had started soon after Auntie Adonin left. When I stayed awake in my room at night, I often wondered what it would feel like not to be trapped in the heavy body but floating around free. Only last month, I had arrived at school to see a naked young man dangling from the wide mango tree. No one knew who he was. It was hard for me to concentrate on mixed cultivation method when I could see his body swinging gently in the wind from our classroom window. That innocent mango tree bore the brunt of the community's anger, its ripe fruit rotting on the branch. Even hungry birds shunned it. Then one morning, the tree was gone. Overnight, it had been hacked to the ground. But on windy days, I still saw that young man swinging gently from the tree branch. No doubt, he longed to be free too. Tickling my head back, I emptied half the bottle of Panadol Extra into my mouth. Then someone started banging on the gate. Startled, I gagged. Mommy? It had to be Mommy. She must have forgotten something. Then someone started banging at the gate. Frantic, I ran to the bathroom and spat the chilled up tablets into the toilet bowl. There was no time to fetch water outside to flush the tablet down. Wiping my mouth, I hurried outside to open the gate. Morayo! It was Auntie Morenike. As I opened the gate, I saw the annoyance on her sweating face. I quickly knelt down to greet her, reaching for the traveling bag she was holding. Good afternoon, Auntie Morenike. I didn't know it was you. Morayo, if you did not know that it was me, Nko. Auntie Morenike paused her lips, giving me a suspicious look. What were you doing? I kept quiet. Auntie Morenike took a deep breath. Get up and let us go inside. The afternoon sun is merciless today. I need something cold to drink. I hope NEPA gave you people electricity. For the past 2 weeks, our whole estate has been living in darkness. Still murmuring to herself, she walked briskly toward her house. I jumped up, carrying the heavy Ghana must go bag after her. Later, as I set the tray of coke and roasted groundnut on the stool beside her, I asked after her son. Auntie Morenike, how is Damilari? Instantly, her face lit up. That boy, he is fine. You need to see the size of amala he is now eating. I can almost swear that his stomach extends into those little legs of his. Auntie Morenike stood up from the seat. She headed toward the toilet. Morayo! When Auntie Morenike screamed my name, I remembered that I had not flushed the tablet. My heart dropped. I could hear Auntie Morenike's footsteps as she hurried back to the sitting room. What are those tablets doing in the toilet bowl? She asked. Looking down at my feet, I kept quiet. I felt a gentle hand on my arms. Morayo, please look at me. Her voice was low and soft. How did those tablets get inside the toilet bowl? I spat them there. You did? Auntie Morenike took a deep breath. Morayo, kilo de. Auntie Morenike, brosti. He raped me. As I said the words out loud, I felt an intense sense of relief. He did not just come to my room at night. He did not just touch me. He did not just lift up my skirt. I said it again. He raped me. I felt Auntie Morenike's body go rigid. And then she gathered me into her arms, resting my head against the chest. The pinching pain in my own chest made me gasp. Auntie, nobody understands how much it hurts. She whispered the words in my ear. Morayo, I do. When I felt tears drop on my forehead, I realized that Auntie Morenike was crying. As the tears sank their way through my hair to my scalp, I started to cry too. For what seemed like a very long time, we held each other and cried softly. When we both had no tears left, we sat on the seat and talked about what had happened. I held onto her hand. Please, don't tell Mommy about the tablet. I promise I will never try that again. I promise. I saw the indecision in her eyes. Morayo, you could have died today. I nodded. That evening, Auntie Morenike did not leave until everybody had come back from the party. I knew that despite my promise, she was still afraid to leave me alone in the house. Later, when Auntie Morenike and Mommy disappeared into Mommy's room, I was sure that she was telling Mommy what she had seen that afternoon. Mommy did not discuss it with me, but from then on, she did not object anytime I asked if I could go out and spend some time at Auntie Morenike's flat. Anytime I felt the sadness coming, I would jump onto a bus and take the 20-minute ride. During one of my visits, we lay side by side on the carpeted floor of Auntie Morenike's sitting room. The room was dark, and it helped that she could not see my face. She had been talking about Brosti. But even though I didn't want him to come to my room, what he did felt good. My chest tightened, and I whispered the words tainted by shame, and I liked it. Auntie Morenike sighed. It still was not your fault. But, you know how you cry when cutting onions? I nodded. Yes. It is because the vapor from the onions make you cry, even though you are not sad. Those feelings in your body were just like that, mere physical reactions. It does not mean that you wanted him to do what he did. I blinked back the tears that came to my eyes. But why did he do it? Because he wanted to, Auntie Morenike replied in a soft voice. It was his choice. She reached for my hand. It is okay for the sadness to still come, Morayo, she said. One day, it will all begin to feel a little better. That day seemed far away, but I never came back home as sad as when I felt. Auntie Morenike often said, with that enigmatic smile of hers, that one should always take care of one's own. Even a strong sieve cannot sift yam flour by itself. It needs a hand to hold it. Part 2, Morenike, 1988, Chapter 9. A man does not go angry at his head, that he then uses his cap to cover his buttocks. Morenike Balogun stared blankly out of the car window. Mr. Bello, Uncle Owolabi's driver, was taking her home. On their way to a flat in Orogun, they drove past the busy Sango market. At 7 o'clock, the market was still bustling with scores of people looking for last-minute bargains. Fresh produce sold for rock-bottom price at the end of the day. Market women with tired babies strapped to their back covered their goals with faded blue waterproof tarpaulin and locked up their shop. Some were already hurrying off to the motor park to catch a commercial minibus. Hungry husbands and children were waiting at home. Mr. Bello drove by the University of Ibadan campus. Morenike saw the silvery shadow of the university ivory tower clock in the distance. She was happy when they drove by the bright street light, but she found the pitch black darkness along the next street of the road even more comforting. Mr. Bello spoke up. Please, I have to stop at the next petrol station. Turning from the window, Morenike rubbed her red eyes. I am not in a hurry to get home. Damilare is with Mommy Ibeji this weekend. Settling back into the seat, she tried to distract herself by staring at the colorful light blinking on the car's dashboard. But her mind kept going back to the look on Auntie Bisoye's face. When Morenike had told Auntie Bisoye about Morayo's attempted suicide, the older woman gasped and her leg buckled. As Morenike held her up, she could feel Auntie Bisoye's body trembling through the cotton iro and buba. Sitting on the bed, Morayo's mother rocked back and forth, muttering and wringing her hands together. How could I have been eating and drinking when my house was on fire? Auntie, it is not your fault. Morenike, Auntie Bisoye looked up in alarm. Thank you for telling me. Now you must help me. Morayo's father must not hear of this. He must not. She wrung her hand again, staring down at the bread spread as if she was berating herself. He already told me that I was the one who brought evil into our home. My God, what have I done? In the back seat, Morenike found herself reaching for the door handle as the car swerved into a brightly lit petrol station, narrowly missing a little boy hawking gala sausage rolls. Mr. Bello stepped out, locking the door behind him. The little boy knocked on the car window. He was wearing a grown man's long buba. His mouth parted in a smile. He pointed to the gala. After Morenike shook her head, she watched the barefooted boy move on to the next car. A bus almost ran him down. But laughing, the little boy jumped between two petrol pumps. Boy, come out for the road, the angry bus driver shouted. The little boy was about the same height as Damilare. Morenike blinked away, the tears at the thought of her son, Damilare. I don't know what to say to Morayo. Auntie Bisoye had held onto Morenike's hand, pleading with her before she finally took her leave. Anytime I tried to speak to her about, Bisoye's hand waved limply in the air. Tayo, Morenike prompted. Bisoye closed her eyes. Yes, she whispered. the word gets stuck in my throat. You would know what to say. Morenike nodded. Yes, she knew. In 1981, when she turned 15, her father's friend, Chief Komolafe, had raped her. For years, Chief Komolafe and Morenike's father co-chaired the Oremeji Neighborhood Landlord Association. She and her younger twin brother, Taiwo and Kehinde, played with his children. Chief Komolafe owned some rental office buildings in the Abeokuta and traveled there regularly. Morenike's father often asked him to drop Morenike at a boarding school in Abeokuta. That fateful morning, years back, Mommy Ibeji woke Morenike. Good morning, Morenike. Oh yeah, get up. Chief Komolafe will soon be here. When you are done packing your things, bring the boxes to the sitting room. By the time Chief Komolafe arrived in his silver Mercedes 280, Morenike was dressed in a white cotton blouse, blue khaki shirt, and blue beret. Mommy Ibeji hugged her daughter tightly as Chief Komolafe's driver, Mr. Adeoti, arranged the cardboard boxes inside the boot of the car. Morenike, when you are in Abeokuta, remember whose child you are. She hugged her daughter again and then looked in her face. Focus on your book and listen to your teachers. Have you heard me? Wiping tears from her eyes, Morenike nodded. Mommy Ibeji walked out to the car. My dear, don't cry. I promise that I will come and see you. Don't forget to give your school mother the packet of cabin biscuit I bought for her. Morenike opened the car's passenger's door and sat next to Mr. Adeoti. She remembered how her mother stood by the house gate waving as the car headed down the winding, hilly street. It had been dark outside. The pre-dawn prayer called out for the Oremeji Mosque 3 streets away, roared from the huge speaker attached to the tall building. Soft yellow light shone from the houses on the hill as the neighborhood woke up. Morenike gently tapped her feet to the music of King Sunny Ade, playing on the car stereo. At the back of the car, Chief Komolafe was going through a pile of newspapers. It was just like all the other times. Soon, they left the busy traffic of the city behind them, driving past little farming villages with endless fields of cassava plants. When they arrived at the town of Ayetoro, Morenike could see butterflies in her stomach. They were now less than 40 kilometers away from the school. As they drove past the crowded weighing center of cocoa and cowpea, Morenike could see sweaty young men loading the brown sack into the lorries that would take the crops to Lagos for shipping. Then she noticed that the car ahead of them were turning around. Mr. Adeoti frowned. Chief, he said in his thick Ibadan accent, I think I should find out what is going on. I can't ask the driver at the motor park, sir. Okay, said Chief Komolafe. He pointed. Park under that tree. Leaving the engine running, Mr. Adeoti crossed the road and spoke with some commercial drivers. They told him that a gang of armed robbers dressed in police uniform had mounted roadblocks and were currently operating on the road of Abeokuta. Hearing the news, Chief Komolafe decided that it would be safer to spend the night in Ayetoro. They would leave for Abeokuta in the morning. They checked into one of the guest houses along the road. After their delicious meal of pounded yam and bushmeat, washed down by ice-cold Mortina, Mr. Adeoti went outside to stretch his legs. Chief Komolafe and Morenike walked back to their hotel rooms. Chief Komolafe stopped in front of East. Morenike, come to my room. He looked at his watch. Let's say in about 30 minutes. There is something I want to discuss with you. Yes, sir. Later, Morenike knocked on Chief Komolafe's door. Come in. Chief Komolafe was sitting on the bed. The small white towel wrapped around the short, stout body barely covered him. Embarrassed, Morenike took a step backward. Sorry, sir. I did not know that you were not dressed. I will come back later, sir. Smiling broadly, Chief Komolafe gestured with his puggy hand. No, Morenike, come in. Come and sit down beside me, he said, patting the spot next to him on the bed. Morenike sat on the bed, her hands neatly folded in her lap. Although her mother had warned against being alone in the room with a meal, she did not think she was in any danger. Was Chief not like his father? Still, her skin crawled when Chief Komolafe reached out and stroked the back of her neck. She shifted away from him. You're such a big girl now, he said, moving closer. When did you become so beautiful? Morenike looked at him unsure how to answer the question. Suddenly, Chief Komolafe wrestled her to the bed and rolled on top of her. His hairy, protruding stomach was as heavy as bricks. When Morenike opened her mouth to scream, Chief Komolafe clamped his hand over her mouth. Panicking, Morenike jabbed him hard in the side with her bony elbow. Chief Komolafe grunted and moved his body away. As Morenike tried to wiggle out from under him, he slapped her across the face. Her head snapped backward, hitting a wooden bed spot. As Morenike drifted away, she could hear his stomach slapping against her body. When Morenike regained consciousness, Chief Komolafe was snoring next to her. She was naked, her torn dress flung on the floor. Sliding off the bed, she clutched the dress to her chest and tiptoed toward the door. She almost dropped the dress when she found Mr. Adeoti standing outside in the corridor. The pile of newspaper in his hand fell to the floor. Morenike? Morning. Morenike ran barefoot to her room. The next morning, Mr. Adeoti scrolled when he saw Morenike standing by the car. Morenike gave him a weak smile. "Ẹ káàárọ̀, sir." Mr. Adeoti ignored a greeting and slammed the car boot shut. She could imagine him thinking, this small girl is following an old baba for money. What is this world turning to? Smacking oily lips from his breakfast, Chief Komolafe strolled majestically out of the hotel. Morenike sat in the front of the car with Mr. Adeoti, her arms wrapped tightly around the body. She could feel the wave of hostility radiating from the driver as he stared straight ahead. Chief Komolafe got into the car without looking in Morenike's direction. Morenike felt the hair on the back of her neck stand up. During the drive to Abeokuta, she was conscious of every move he made. Her body tensed up whenever he held onto her headrest to reposition himself. They soon arrived at Abeokuta, driving past the ancient crumbling mud wall that still surrounded part of it. The sprawling city was right below the famous Oluma Rock. From Morenike's school, in the heart of Abeokuta, the student could see the Olumo and the crowd of tourists that visited its caves and shrines. Adeoti stopped at the supermarket next to the school. Yes, sir. On other trips, Morenike would skip out of the car and race inside with Mr. Adeoti to buy more cornflakes, powdered milk, and bottle of Ribena. The extra provision always came in handy during lean period in the middle of the school term. But this time, when Chief Komolafe pointed the wad of money in Morenike's direction, she froze. He landed the money on his driver instead. Adeoti, go and get some provisions for Morenike to take back to school. Mr. Adeoti collected the money and went into the supermarket. Adjusting the folds on his shirt lace agbada, Chief Komolafe sat back in the push leather seat and continued reading his newspaper. Morenike stared into space. When they arrived at the school, she quietly opened the door and stood outside. Without saying a word, Mr. Adeoti removed the heavy carton of provision from the boot and dropped it right on Morenike's feet. Then he took the thick bundle of naira notes Chief Komolafe handed him and flung it inside the open